In today's lesson, we're going to focus on grammar for IELTS general writing, and specifically, we'll be focusing on sentence types that you can use and apply within your own writing to aim for those higher band scores, but also just to be accurate with your grammatical language. Okay, so why do sentence types matter? Let's take a look at the band descriptors to help us understand why a range of sentence types in our writing is important. And when we talk about sentence types, we mean a few different structures. We'll learn more about this very shortly. So, the band descriptors. 6, a band score 6, which is a very common, maybe even an average score, 6, 6.5. So the band descriptors say, use a mix of simple and complex sentence forms. So that's really kind of pretty open. There's quite a lot of interpretation within this that we can use, but it's basically saying you can use a range of sort of some simple stuff, some slightly longer sentences, some more complex structures. And to be honest, even as a 9, you need to do this. You need to use a mix of simple and complex sentence forms. If you only were to use sort of shorter, simple sentences, you're not going to score very highly at all. So in any good writing, you will see a mix of simple, complex and different structures. Balance is important within writing, whether that's, for us, learning and studying English, or for the very top level writers, J.K. Rowling and the rest. Band score 7, use a variety of complex structures. So again, it doesn't really say too much, but it's important that we do reflect on the band descriptors at times. So if we take 6 and 7 together, simple, complex sentence forms within 6. And in 7, it also says to use a variety of complex structures. And we're going to learn 3 sentence types within this lesson, and I'll show you how to form them. And really, that's kind of what 7 is after. So when you're going up to band scores 6.5, 7 or higher, you need to use all 3 sentence structures and use them very accurately. To achieve a band score 6, you need to use a variety of simple and complex sentence structures. This also applies for band score 7. So what is said in 6, in any band descriptor 6, you must do as well to get into 7. Okay, so first up, very important, we're going to look at clauses in sentences. Not Santa Claus, very different indeed. Clauses are word groups with a subject and a verb, forming complete thoughts. They make up ideas within our sentences. So clauses really, that last part of this is the really important bit. They form ideas. They're a group of words that give ideas, and they can form complete thoughts, or they might also just give extra information without forming everything. Let's just go a bit further into that to make that a bit clearer for you. They come in 2 types: independent clauses, standalone, complete ideas, complete thoughts. They can work as a sentence on their own. And dependent clauses. You have to pair them next to an independent clause to work properly. An independent clause is a complete idea. It's a full sentence, works independently on its own. A dependent clause is like an extra detail. It doesn't work on its own. It's not a complete idea. Let's have a look at an example for you. Independent. She enjoys reading books. She, subjects, enjoys, verb, reading books is our noun phrase. Here people will be a bit confused. They say, well, isn't reading the verb? Well, actually in this example here, this independent clause, reading books is the activity. It's like a noun, reading books, the noun phrase. So there we go. Needs a full stop on the end. It's an independent clause. It's a full idea. It doesn't need anything else, but we could add extra information within this sentence if we like. Let's take a look at a dependent clause that doesn't work on its own. In her free time. So here we don't have our verb. We're missing our verb. We have the subject in, And we have some details such as free time, her free time, possessive noun here, her free time. In her free time, I'm waiting. What's the rest of the sentence? We need more information. And we can see dependent does not work on its own. Independent does. Now, clauses, I'll say again, are really important to understand how to form clear and accurate sentences, and also how to break up our writing into different parts of ideas. Let's take a look at this. So, she enjoys reading books. Independent works on its own. In her free time, this doesn't work on its own. It's a dependent clause. However, if we put the dependent clause with the independent clause, it will work brilliantly. In her free time, comma, she enjoys reading books. So this is actually a complex sentence, and we'll look at more examples of this shortly. In her free time, comma, she enjoys reading books. So this is an example of a complex structure that we could quite easily use within an IELTS letter, maybe informal situation. Okay, so we've taken a look at clauses. We'll come back to them shortly once we look through the 3 sentence types, but it's important to know that clauses are really important within our writing. Okay, so 3 sentence types. We can break down our sentences into 3 main sentence types. There are other ways that we can structure sentences with different names, but I think for IELTS students, even higher level IELTS students, it's good to think of sentences in 3 main types. Up first, we have simple sentences. This is mentioned within that band descriptor 6, can use simple and complex. Now, they're not specifically saying simple sentences like I'll show you here, but they're just saying generally can use simple structures. So what the band descriptor 6 is saying, you can do sort of simple structures, but you can also do slightly more challenging structures too. But within all +6 band descriptors for writing, you need to use a range of sentence types. Up first, simple sentence. A simple sentence consists of one independent clause expressing a complete thought. It's one main idea contained within itself. And this is subject, verb, rest of the sentence, whatever the extra detail may be. And this is how we form an independent clause also. Let's take a look at some examples. She enjoys science fiction books. She, subject, verb is enjoys, and then we have our object to the rest of the sentence, science fiction books. And this is a perfectly fine sentence. Some students, even within IELTS as well, will look at this and think, it's just too simple. I can't use this in my writing. I'll get a low score. But you must sometimes use simple structures. You can't always use these really long, complex structures and sentences in your writing. It's unnatural. And also, it's not good writing. You must find balance. So some simple sentences like this are great to use. Okay, one more example. The line graph shows types of pollution in Wales. So we have subject, the line graph, verb shows, and then the rest of the sentence, types of pollution in Wales. Now, for anyone who knows something about IELTS writing academic, task 1, this is an example of some language for task 1 in the academic test. But it just goes to show that simple sentences can be used in any situation. Okay, so first up, simple sentences, massively important. Up next, we have compound sentences. These are 2 or more independent clauses joined by a linking word, and these are often called conjunctions. But, I often call them linking words, linking phrases. And these usually come in the middle of our sentence. Either side, we have independent clauses. Much like this. Independent clause plus a conjunction can be and, but, or, so, yet, plus others. And then an independent clause at the end. So there's 2 whole ideas joined together here. And we commonly do that within English language, both speaking and writing. Let's see an example. He likes coffee, but she prefers tea. But here is showing difference. So I'm highlighting contrast and difference. He likes coffee, but she prefers tea. Not really an IELTS example, just an example to explain compound sentences. But, the conjunction but, is used for contrast and difference. And some conjunctions have different uses. Let's see the next example. I love sport, though my friend prefers watching movies. So, two independent clauses. I love sport. I could full stop there and leave it, but actually I'm creating a compound sentences. Though, so again, contrast and additional information. So slightly different use, contrast and more information. My friend prefers watching movies. So that's all I say on compound sentences. It's not, you can see there's a range of linking phrases we can use, but it's two independent clauses joined in the middle by linking words. Okay, so a compound sentence can be thought of as something of a complex structure as well. You want to use some of these in your writing for sure. But up next, speaking of complex advanced structures, we have complex sentences. So a complex sentence contains an independent clause and one or sometimes more than one dependent clause. We already saw an example of this earlier in this lesson. Independent clause plus dependent clause. Now we use a comma to separate them. We'll be coming back to punctuation shortly in a lot more detail. Independent clause, comma, dependent clause. One thing is very true here, we can switch them round. The order really doesn't matter so much, we can play around with that. Our first example is, although it was raining, comma, they decided to go for a walk. Dependent doesn't work on its own, although it was raining. I'm waiting for more information, tell me more. Although it was raining, they decided to go for a walk. That independent clause at the end. And here's another example. I'm committed to attending the job interview, despite numerous challenges. Well done, it's good to hear your commitment is so strong. So there's just a few examples for you. You must be careful with the use of the comma. Complex sentences are really good ways to add extra details and show off your fluency skills. But again, you don't want to always be using them. Find balance, use a clear mix of sentence types within your writing. Okay, next up, what I'd like to do is see some examples of each sentence types within formal and informal settings. So here's our question. You recently visited a new city and experienced some problems. Write a letter to the city council explaining the issues. Simple sentences. I faced many transportation issues during my visit. Accommodation arrangements were problematic throughout my stay. Few examples of simple sentences there. Compound sentences. The overall experience was mostly positive, but I'd like to mention a few improvements. I faced transportation issues, even though I had pre-booked many trips. That doesn't sound very good indeed. Okay, and a few complex sentences for this question type. While the accommodation was satisfactory, transportation was terrible at best. And our last one here. Although tourist guides were not easily found, I still found some fun activities to do. Okay, so there we have some examples of simple, compound and complex sentences within this setting of a formal letter question. Let's jump ahead and take a look at an informal question and some sentence type examples. Write a letter to your friend inviting them to a party you are organising. Simple sentences. I would love you to come to the party too. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple, but definitely very usable within our writing. Really hoping you can make it for this Saturday. And compound. I'm having a party and I'd love for you to join. It will be fun and I don't want you to miss out on the good times. Sounds like a good friend. And let's move on to some complex structures. Beginning with dependent. Although it will be a casual event, my party this Saturday should be great fun. Okay, so all the examples so far have been dependent, comma, independent. Let's mix it up just a little bit for this final example. I'm having a party tomorrow and I'd love for you to join, making it even more fun. So this is an example of a complex structure, a complex sentence with a bit of a mix of clauses involved. We actually start with a compound sentence with a conjunction in the middle. I'm having a party tomorrow and I'd love for you to join. And then we make that compound sentence into a complex structure and a complex sentence with this comma plus making it even more fun. So this shows that there is another level to go where we can play around slightly with our complex structures. And overall, just really good practice to have a look through these examples. So that brings us to the end of this lesson. And I hope that you've really found it useful to find out a bit more about clauses, how they impact and help structure our speaking and writing especially. And also, I hope that you've really found it interesting learning about these 3 sentence types. Finally, remember to find balance. You do need to use all structures within your writing if you're looking for those higher scores.